He's like, as crazy as it sounds, like I've worked with someone similar to this who dug holes in their basement and like sounds really competent. And when he comes to their house, he's like, oh my. And he's like,
he like starts explaining. He's like, no, it's important. It's for me to understand. And then he just like goes to town with a pickaxe and he's just like, yeah.
Hello, and welcome to StoryFellas, the podcast where we make stories and we break stories. I'm your host, Tommy Antonucci.
And I'm your host, Zach Lovelace.
Zach, how are you doing this fine morning?
I'm good, man. Did back and bicep workout this morning. Feeling strong.
That's what we were talking before we started recording. Me and Zach both woke up extra early and both did workouts this morning.
Yeah, we didn't talk to each other about it. We just did it.
We just did it. We were in sync. We were probably doing the same exact. When I did a push-up, you were in sync doing the same push-up.
Probably. And you're in China, so we're like pushing the earth back and forth.
Yeah, we're holding it in place. It's perfect.
For those who don't know, Tommy's Chinese.
Yeah, big reveal in episode whatever.
Antonucci's a Chinese last name.
Well, I hope you are doing well, Zach. We at the time of recording this, we're entering a new year and a new year of endeavors. You know, do you have any goals this year? Any big resolutions or anything for yourself personally?
I am working on a documentary and I really want to get that done. So that's basically, it's not my only goal, but it's probably the biggest one, that if I can get that done, ideally before my birthday, which is May 3rd, which is doable, but I just picked up 2 more interviews for it, which I thought I was just in post-production already. And so that's a documentary problem, though, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I know some other people who are doing documentaries, and there's 2 common factors. Is one, they keep realizing they're not done because there's more that they can capture. And the other factor of anyone working on a documentary is they're trying to get done with it.
Yes.
And I think that's the nature of the beast, is that you can add more story to it. It's like adding supplemental material, like building a Lego castle.
Yeah, you always make the painting more rich, more deep, you can always go and add more to it. But you eventually have to say done is better than perfect. And just be like, all right, the story got told. But my editor, he sent me a text after doing a cut and was like, I think we could use this, and this. I was like, all right, man, this isn't what I wanted to hear. But
I thought you were going to say, he's like, I'm going to quit if you keep getting interviews. We have to end this.
He's pretty hyped for it too, which is nice. Like, I can tell you, doing the directing and the basically writing for the documentary, I'm so tired. I could not edit it. I was like, dude, somebody has to edit it. And my buddy Brian stepped up. But what about you, man? What does your 2024 look like?
I don't know. It just kind of has that. I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy, because I feel like it's just, it's funny because I was talking to a coworker and he said, oh, I'll take the free motivation, which is an interesting way to think about it. It's like a wave that you're like capitalizing on. For me, it just kind of is this air of optimism. It feels like, okay, fresh start, new year ahead of me. Like, we're making this podcast. I feel like there's more creative projects I want to do on the back burner. And I feel like I have the ability to act on them, you know? Like, it feels like for a long time there's been ideas where it's like, oh, someday I'll have the skill or the technique to do that. And it feels like at this point I'm running out of excuses. I feel like I can act on it. It's just now a matter of doing it at some point. So
yeah, and that's whether you want to keep it in the perfect realm of ideas or you actually want to do it. That's up to you.
Yeah, it's our friend Colin sometimes says to us on calls, he's like, hey, let's go do good work and not talk about it. Because the whole idea of and here, the irony, I'm talking about it here on a podcast, that you get those same good feelings by talking about an idea as you do by doing it. So that's why I'm not being specific about anything, because I feel like it's better if I just do it. I would love to just like have you guys and some of our friends just drop a link at some point and be like, hey, I made a thing, and just do that.
Dude. That's so, oh man.
You do that sometimes, and I'm so excited. I'm like, oh yeah.
For my YouTube stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing that because it is such a gift that people are so surprised and they can see something with absolutely no context, basically.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm right there with you, man. This podcast. I don't think I've talked to anybody about, so it's kind of fulfilling that thing where it's like
Yeah.
it's just gonna come out, man.
Yeah, it's nice to have a second person in it. I feel like
Hmm.
personally I'm one that I like to be, I think, call it sin nature or whatever. I am a control freak. I like to like be in control, which that's something the Lord works on me and being like, hey, you're not in control all the time. But I think with projects, I feel that way. But it's very nice to have like a second person in this
Oh
because it
yeah.
helps with accountability. If this was just me, I think it'd be a lot harder to show up every week
Oh,
and
absolutely.
talk by one, just talking by myself, but it's that feeling of like, do I want to get up early? Yeah, I told this guy I was going to get up early, so
Hmm.
we're gonna go do it.
Oh, when you get that email from Tommy Antonucci of the Google Meetup link for StoryFellas episodes, man, that gets you up in the morning, you know?
And I'm waiting for the day that one of us accidentally oversleeps and the other one's like, I got up early for nothing.
Oh man, I was afraid that happened this morning actually. I woke up at 4, not on purpose. The baby woke up, and so that I for whatever reason it was just in my dream mind like, "Oh, I missed Storyfellas." And I was like, Tommy had to do a whole episode without me. And I was like talking to you in my head as I was going back to sleep like, I'm sorry, man. I promise I won't ever do it again.
No, it's all good. Like I said, I worked out this morning, so I was like, if he misses it, it's fine. I did other stuff, like other things are going.
You were
Uh,
thinking if I missed it.
well, no, I'm just thinking if either of us misses it, but it's so far, no, everyone's been on time, and it's been great. It's a
Yeah,
nice way to start the morning. But
absolutely.
speaking of story, fellows, man, do you want to play a story game? You
I
want to come
would
up?
love to play a story game.
Do you want to roll something for me so we can see what kind of prompt we've got
I'll pull
coming
up
our
my
way?
my digital die up here.
Digital die.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Digital Dice.
Yeah, get your own NFT dice. What kind of dice you want me to roll here, man? I got a 4, I got a 6, I got an 8, 10, 12, 20, 50, 100, million.
Well, a million. Roll a million-sided die because I prepared that many prompts. No, roll a. Let's roll a 10.
Okay, okay. Here we go, here we go. 4.
Or okay,
This is your Fantastic Four idea?
yeah. It's called Fantastic Quattro, and
Oh boy.
it's like a spinoff of Fantastic Four. No, for this is. All right, I think this might be our first comedy potentially, unless we take
Nice.
it in a dark turn.
It's very possible.
It is. All right. The prompt is a dad decides to rock a mustache for the first time and he discovers life is very different for those with mustaches.
Ooh, interesting.
I almost feel like this kind of immediately gives me short film vibes rather than feature film vibes.
Oh
Like
yeah.
this is like one of those like some quirky aspect of the world. It feels comedy to me.
Oh yeah.
Like it could
It
be,
honestly feels subplot to me. Or like, it's an episode of Malcolm in the Middle where Hal decides to grow a mustache.
yeah.
It's you know what I mean? It's like, but it's not the main story.
Yeah, yeah. But I think there could be this dad deciding to grow a mustache could speak to a dad that's wanting to make a change or something. Or maybe he's
Totally.
rebelling. I can see that. Like he's rebelling against a wife who always wants him clean shaven. He's like, I'm a man, Sharon. I'm going to grow a mustache.
Yeah. I
And,
like that.
oh,
I have a story idea. This is kind of cheating, but I guess as a writer, that's just inevitable, especially on a show like
you're
this.
going to plug in past ideas?
Yeah, where it's just like, okay, oh, I have an idea that kind of slots in perfectly, and we'll just use this to launchpad. Obviously, like your prompt here launchpadded us, but I had a
Yeah.
story idea where this is before the Brendan Fraser renaissance that I was imagining this being Brendan Fraser, but this dad, it's kind of like a Fight Club movie where
Mm,
he is really stuck in the kind of malaise of modern life,
mm,
and he is just depressed, to be totally honest. And he's got like college age daughter who's like deciding to do OnlyFans against his wish. You know,
Hmm.
he just feels very neutered. Like he doesn't have any impact in his own life
Or his family's life.
or his family's life. Yeah, like
Yeah.
he can't like he does again. He feels impotent. I think would be the big way to kind of give him his flaw here. So he might literally be impotent as well, like with his wife. And we can depict that in whatever way. You know, we don't have to do that in an explicit manner.
Hmm.
But he's just again very sad. And Brendan Fraser really just captured that a couple of years ago before he had kind of popped back off. Might still be able to pull that off. He kind of has that sad boy thing going for him now. But the idea is that he breaks one day and decides to start digging in his unfinished basement,
Hmm.
and he just starts digging a hole,
Hmm.
and it like slowly becomes like a mine shaft, and he just like it's for no other purpose other than just him to dig. Like he can't articulate why he's doing it.
This is the prequel to Encino Man, where he buries
Yeah, yeah,
himself in
yeah.
ice.
Yeah, exactly. And you come to find out, Encino Man actually happens like in the year 4000.
When everything's super retro.
Yeah.
No, I remember a long time ago us touching on this
Oh,
subject
okay,
a little
great.
bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's perfect.
like I couldn't remember because I know that you're a Brendan Fraser fan, and I know that you've talked about putting him in things, but this sounds familiar of him digging a hole,
Yeah.
and that's so funny to me that this is just like he's so fed up. He's like he just like I imagine. So like in his basement, is it kind of just a dirt floor basement, or is he like?
Or it's like one step above it, you know, like a ratty kind of carpet thing. I think he has like an unfinished man cave.
Yeah, I feel like there's something about. I don't think he goes down to the basement with the intention of digging a hole. Like I feel like
No,
something
no,
breaks
yeah.
bad. Like I don't know, a bowling ball in a very comedic way, like breaks the floor open, and then he's like, "Oh, I in my man cave," and
Yeah.
this is the only place he feels like he's got any say in anything. But the one place no one else is in the room, like he doesn't
Yeah.
even have any. But I imagine something upends the floor, and it's kind of like a slow thing. Like he's like trying to clean up, and then he's like, "Huh," and like digs
Yep.
a little, and it just sets in. It
I think him
becomes
like peeling up the carpet too. Like he could, like you said, spill something or like catch something on fire. And it's like this little patch of carpet and he just grabs it and just like
yeah.
pulls it and rips it more. And he like pulls it. Yeah, I love that. And the symbol of the unfinished man cave, I think is an interesting idea. The man cave, I think will go down as a cultural artifact at some point because it's a lot of times has like an artificial sense to it.
Hmm.
So it might be finished or unfinished. I think it makes more sense for it to be unfinished,
Hmm.
but he basically the idea that it's symbolic of his masculinity, you know.
I yeah, I actually like that it's unfinished because when I picture man cave, I picture like a decked out room with like
A
nice
pool
couch,
table,
cool,
yeah.
like one that's kind of done. But the idea of him like making like he doesn't have the resources, his wife or whatever, just kind of it's like, yeah, you can have the basement, but it's not a nice basement, and he
Yeah.
doesn't have like money for nice things. So he has like a picture on the wall of like a
Yeah.
band he likes and like an old raggedy couch, and
It's
it's
like he
like
printed it out
and
and it's not even like a real
yeah,
poster.
and it's like, it's just thumbtacked to the
Yeah.
wall, and then he just has like a little space heater down there because maybe it's cold or something. Like I like that because that adds to the comedy slash sadness that he's like,
Yes.
well, I'm going to my man cave, and it's not nice at all. Like it's not impressive in the
Yeah.
slightest.
I like that too. Because I mean, that's the thing is he's pathetic. I think
Hmm.
the word that comes to my mind, and the characters that I tend to love are like Paul Giamatti, you know, type characters who are pathetic. I can really imagine those guys. I don't know what that says about me, but they're comedy engines for me. Like guys who
Hmm.
take themselves really seriously, but are really sad at the same time. That might blow up on someone. I think that's all like really good fertile territory for something comedic. That said, if you want to name this guy, give
Yeah,
us a name and we'll rock and roll.
do we want a name that kind of reflects him a little bit? I'm just
Sure.
trying.
Maybe not too on the nose because I think sometimes stuff like that
Yeah,
can
that's
get a
true.
little on
That's
the
true.
nose. But
I feel like did you have any names in your pocket? This was your story. Because I kind of feel like it could
I don't
be
think I did. I
something
think
like
it was just always Brendan Fraser in my mind, but Brendan is not a good name. I mean, no offense to Brendan Fraser, but
or any Brendans out there. What
yeah,
about
our
what
audience
about
is nothing but Brendans.
so like our viewership just drops, it tanks after this comment. It could be like Phil
Oh,
or
I kind of
Nigel.
like. So that's you just reminded me of something because Phil or Nigel. Okay, I do like Phil. Just
Uh,
going off of what you're saying here, but I just remembered something too. Is that
Hugh,
you? Yeah, that I was calling him Fred, but
Fred.
that was just because I'm like trying to pull on this idea of Fred Flintstone being like the kind of dad. But Fred is a name that I feel like only really exists in movies. No offense to all of the Freds listening.
Yeah, that's the other half of our viewership, just down.
Yeah,
Right there.
Brendan's and Freds. But it's like an older guy name. And so, yeah, I didn't, last name Flint, I think is like a good compromise rather than Fred, but like whatever his first name, Phil Flint, although that's like straight
What
up
ab-
Stan
what
Lee naming style.
Yeah, what about what about like Gary or something like that,
Gary's good,
or
like kind of a name
or
that you would just,
George or something.
I like George. I like
But
George a
oh
lot.
wait, he's George
George
of
of
the
the
Jungle.
Jungle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we can't do that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think that gets to the spirit of it because, like, in reality, Brendan Fraser is probably not going to hear this and is probably not going to commission me to write this movie for him.
No. Well, what about Greg?
Greg is my brother's name, so
Oh, it can't be. So no.
yeah,
What about
So,
Zach Lovelace?
yeah,
Is this a
exactly.
story about you digging a hole?
Tom. How about Tom? I actually do like the name Tom. To be
It could
totally
be a
honest.
Tom Flint.
Yeah,
It could be a Tom Flint. I'm just gonna slowly superimpose myself as a character in every
yeah.
every story,
And then every story I tell is always going to be about masculinity for whatever reason.
and a pathetic man.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's tentatively sit on Tom Flint. Is this
Okay.
guy's name? It's the Flint family. And then they have stones in their front yard, and there's the Flint stones.
Yeah. Obviously.
I want to flesh out some of his inner circle to help me understand. So, like you said, he has a wife and he has a daughter. Are they? And do you think that's the family? Do you think he has a son or anything?
I don't think he has a son. I think there's this really interesting contrast by surrounding him with women.
Okay, I think that works because I was going to say if he had a young son, I could see a plot point. His son
That's true.
joining in with him eventually.
That's true.
Because I don't think his daughter's necessarily. Maybe eventually she might like jump into the hole or something like that.
That's
But
true. Yeah, there's a whole avenue that you could get. I'm not opposed to the son. I think the real emotional storyline is with him and his wife.
is his wife like mean to him, or is there just like a disconnect? Like how do
I think
you
it's a
picture that?
disconnect. If you've ever seen Unbreakable, it's a little bit like that.
Oh,
Where
with
they're
the sad Superman with
yeah.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like there's kind of this like longing from both of them to like figure it out, but they don't
Yeah.
really know how to.
Yeah. Whereas that's I guess sympathetic. I think that the wife is just really real. She speaks her mind and is like, "Hey, if you don't do this," I think she could also be a little overbearing, and and he's not, and that's
I
what he
feel-
needs to learn.
I feel
Not-
like
not- Go ahead.
I picture her as like a working woman too,
Mm-hmm.
potentially like she's a career woman. Like maybe she's got a nice job that's like more prestigious than his a little bit, and that
Yeah.
kind of adds to him feeling like he's not contributing as much.
I'm gonna pull a Stephen King, and we'll make him a writer. But that way he can work from home. And like one day she's like, "Why don't you come into the office and like you can work in the office with me?" And he comes and
Oh,
like,
I like
meets her coworkers and stuff, and he sees her like as this kind of superstar, and then you just like cut to like this guy in flannel behind her.
I like that
that's Tom.
actually. Although he hasn't he played a writer? And that's probably fine. If we go
Oh,
back to
I'm
everything
sure,
that Brendan
yeah.
Fraser has done,
Yeah.
then we're not going to have a lot of avenues.
It's spiritually connected to his career, but not, it doesn't need to be. But yeah, there's tons of movies that you just need to have them be something, and I think a writer works.
Okay, so the wife is like, she's kind of encouraging and stuff. I get the vibe you're going for, but she also acknowledges there's a disconnect. But she's not acting like she's kind of for him and trying to help him.
Yeah.
But there's like they're missing the mark. They're both
I
missing the
think
mark.
if anything, she's too motherly
Okay.
to him.
Okay.
And so it like that actually pushes him away further because he's like, no, I am your husband. Whereas, you know, you just, you're acting like I'm your son.
Yeah.
And you know, oh, you need to clean your room, and maybe, yeah, maybe they're sleeping in separate rooms because he snores a lot or something like that, and you know, so their love life is taking a hit.
Gotcha. And then I want to just kind of get like a brief beat of all these because I think the family is the core story, so we need to figure them out.
Totally, yeah.
So the daughter, you said she's doing OnlyFans. Do you want to commit to that bit?
I
Like,
think
is that
so. Yeah,
something you?
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that's just an interesting. I wouldn't name it as OnlyFans. You know, I wouldn't try and be.
But
just,
it's like she's like kind of like doing webcams. I rather than make it like, let me know your thought on this. Like rather than make it too gross, like she's not really doing anything crazy. She's like streaming and just kind of like wearing like dresses. And it's still not like he doesn't love it. Like she's not doing
Yeah.
anything gross, but she's like, yeah, these men online just pay me money to
It could
like
be
talk to
that.
them.
Yeah,
and
it could.
stuff.
She could be just streaming, and she just has these pay pigs or whatever they're called, where they just pay her. And he's like, I just have one line that I really like, and this gets to our along the lines segment at the end that we're trying to do every time. But again, I already had this pre-programmed. But the line goes something to the effect of like, oh man, hold on, I had it pulled up. And if I can't remember it, then it must not be that good. But it's something like, we have a daughter whose whole aspiration in life is to be a thumbnail.
I like that line a lot, and I think that still works even if she's like she's just an internet person and she's making. It'd be funny if she like made in a month like on 1 month she had a good month and she made more money than he did with his stuff. I think that's good. Yeah, okay, I'm on board with that because that doesn't take her into too like gross territory. Like she's just like online and he still doesn't love it. He's like, who are these people? Like there's like gross comments or whatever.
I like that because then it comes to find out that it's like his neighbor, Dingleberg, you're one of her pay pigs? You know, and he's like, oh. And maybe he can fight that guy. Like,
okay, let's put that in our pocket. I like that. The other thing I'd like to introduce to him, to his immediate circle, is I'd like to give him kind of a guy friend, like one guy that's like in his court, like the kind of like friend that comes over and he's like, oh, has brewskis with him or something like that, where like he can be more himself with this guy than his family, because I think we need to give him a little bit of an avenue for that.
Totally.
And that could just be some neighbor or friend or something like that.
I know exactly the supporting type character. And there are just a few variations that we could play with. The one that I had pre-programmed was that he starts digging, right? And his wife was like, oh man, he's like, you know, actually digging in the basement. But he goes to Home Depot and finds this group of illegal immigrants basically. And he's like, anybody want to come help? You know, like dig or whatever, and none of them speak English. And so, but there's this like one guy that like sticks with him throughout the rest of the movie, and he's just this other, and then he pays him obviously, but he's like a solid Hispanic dad, but doesn't speak English, and it's like building a mine shaft for him. I don't know. I feel like that's.
So my one hesitancy with that is the idea of him paying somebody. Because to me, it's like it makes it feel like there's like a purpose where I'm picturing this whole thing is like an internal thing. It's the Forrest Gump running at the end of the movie until he has a long beard, or it's like it's Deck the Halls with Danny DeVito putting these lights on his house to be seen from space. Like him crossing the line into like hiring people makes it feel like he has a distinct objective, and I don't think he knows the objective. I think it's also funnier if he finds someone who's just like, this is awesome, man. Like he just like someone like finds this hole and like just some dude who doesn't have a job, and he's like, dude, I can't pay you, and he's like, dude, I'd do this for free, and he's just like digging this hole with him.
I like the idea of the character. You ever seen Office Space?
Yes.
The next door neighbor who's like, yeah, man, what would you do with $1 million? 2 chicks at the same time. that kind of guy where it's like I still want him to be. There could be some guy that's like just his wife has hired to do something else, to dig a pool or not dig a pool,
Oh,
but
dude, that's so funny. That's so funny. If she hired some dude to like do yard work and like he's never doing
yes,
yard work because he's down
yeah.
there in the hole with his husband.
I like the yard work guy. That's cool.
I still think in my original pitch for like a buddy guy, I still think that's important, but he's playing less of a role at this point because I feel like before he digs the hole, I like the idea of like someone who's really like just kind of supportive for him. It's like, dude, you're gonna find your thing, like just like a
Yeah,
neighborly dude. Like I picture in Truman Show his air
his
quote
friend.
friend
Yeah,
there, but then I feel like, and then he can kind of pop up through the movie and be like, dude, what are you doing?
yeah,
But then he does find this like the yard worker dude, and he's like that guy's bought into this whole idea. Like he's in the hole with him, and then
yeah.
he befriends this dude.
I like that a lot. He's like slightly younger than him.
Yeah, it's like what's the SNL Pete? What's his name?
Oh, Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson, someone like that.
Totally, yeah. Somebody like Pete Davidson with like a ponytail and like a big handlebar mustache,
Yeah,
and he like open carries his handgun, while he's mowing the lawn and stuff. I like that a lot. That he's because it also kind of undercuts and could serve the story where it undercuts his masculinity, where the wife has hired this guy who I think is like kind of a redneck, but like clearly a masculine guy to mow her husband's lawn. And so he's kind of like taking away. So at some point that could come to a head,
yeah.
where where the wife is like, "What am I paying you for it?" I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah, I like that whole dynamic is a lot of fun to me because I also could see Brendan Fraser not liking this guy at first because he's just like feels put out because yeah, it's like he's like, honey, I can mow the lawn. And she's like, you're busy here with your stuff, and so he doesn't like this. Now I just picture Pete Davidson with the handlebar mustache.
So
But
I just thought in my head, Theo Vaughn. Do you know the comedian Theo Vaughn?
yeah, I do know Theo Von.
I
Yeah,
think Theo Vaughn would be perfect for
yeah.
this. I'm more of a Theo fan than I am a Pete Davidson fan.
Okay,
So
but that kind of character, like I
yes,
get it. And then I imagine like this whole thing starts happening, and then the the let's pick a name for this guy who's like the yard worker because I feel like
all right.
he's
So we have Tom as our main character.
Tom Flynn.
I think Deke.
Deke. How
Yeah,
do you spell Deke?
Deke.
Deke.
Yeah, it's short for Deacon.
Okay, I like it. Deke. I just imagine him. So the whole thing starts. Deke like comes in or something to like and because like I feel like he's almost too chummy with everything. Not in a point that he's like
Yeah,
flirting with the wife, but he'll come into the house to like grab stuff.
and he's
And
polite
then
about it. He's like, "Oh, hey, Mrs. Flint. Sorry, I got some more fertilizer in my eyes. I gotta rinse it out real quick." He's just,
but I think he like does that. He comes in to like because she's offered. She's like, oh, if you want a lemonade or something, it's in the fridge. And then he comes
yeah,
in and he hears the shoveling, and he like peeks downstairs. He goes downstairs, and then he's like, dude, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
yeah, yeah,
And then this guy that Tom didn't like at first like becomes like his kind of his biggest supporter to the
yeah.
point that he is jumping and he's like, can I help? He's like, you want to help me? It's like, yeah. He's like, I can't pay you for this. Like this, like, and he's like, no, I'll just do this, man. Um, and I think that's kind of funny. So there's either this dynamic where he's like doing the lawn care, and then
Yeah.
when he's done, like he's coming down for free to help him, and it gets the wife a little bent out of shape because she's kind of
Well, we're not
upset.
paying you for this.
He's like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, yeah, you don't have to. This is what I want to do. I believe in this hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
I like that a lot.
I like all these characters. What is I want to follow back up on? He starts he I can already kind of picture the beginning. Like I can picture the beats of like him. You see him with his family. You see that his life's not going great. He's not very encouraged. He has writer's block. And this goes with the thing that we always talk about. A writer will do anything to not write a
That's
little
true.
bit. And then a fire happens. Something happens that makes him have to peel up the floor. And then he finds the dirt and he like keeps peeling up the wood paneling and he starts digging. And this begins, how quickly one does his wife and family figure out what he's doing and what is their reaction to it. I think
I
it'd be
would say
good.
not super quickly because that's how invisible he is. I think
I
maybe if she starts seeing like dirt footprints or something like that at some point, that could lead into it. But she's really kind of oblivious because he's such a non-factor in her life.
yeah, I think that makes sense. Like there's just like he's doing stuff, and then there's hints. So like he'll like I get 90s movie vibes from this a
Oh,
lot.
yeah, it definitely feels like a '90s movie for
And
sure.
it's like he comes up like she's like back from work and she's like dealing with her stuff and he's like walking behind her and he's like covered in dirt.
Yeah,
But then like she just never turns around and he like heads to the shower and she like misses that. And so like there's all these little moments like that where like it's like he's not hiding it. He just is doing
yeah,
he's like and then he goes on and then eventually maybe the daughter discovers it first.
yeah. She goes
But
down there and is actually because maybe she's got a thing for Deke.
Uh, yeah, I think it'd be funny if, well, I don't know, either could be funny if Deke reciprocated or if he just had no interest at all. Like if he was just really gung
Yeah,
ho
that's
about
true.
like digging. But we could explore that. But I
I think
feel
if
like,
anything, if he cuts off the power somehow or something like that, like bigger, because that would stop the daughter from doing the streaming.
yeah, it's she comes down and she's like, "Dad, what are you doing?" And his hair's up. And he's like, "I think I hit an electrical line
Yeah,
and something." He's like, "Okay, we're gonna tape that section off." And then yeah, because then he hops out and he flips the breaker, he fixes whatever he broke. But then that introduces her. She's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" Like, because I also think it's something really novel for someone who's so plugged in and internet heavy.
oh
Like,
yeah,
it's like something I'm sure you can relate to this, but working a job where I look at a screen most of the day, like some manual labor every once in a while,
oh
like is
man,
very intriguing and it's very it's even satisfying to watch. There's whole YouTube channels of like people who like
totally, yeah,
clean rugs and stuff. And you're just like, man, this is like, and I feel like that feeling, she doesn't maybe act on it immediately, but that feeling encroaches on her where she's like, huh, like there's something interesting about seeing her dad and like and he's kind of like in his world in the way that they always react to him. Like
yeah,
they're like doing their thing and they're like, yeah, whatever, dad. He's a little like that where he's like, oh, hope you have fun with your video or whatever. And like he's just doing his thing and he's
hmm
happy and content. And I think that is like one of the first instances of us seeing him a bit more confident in the presence of his family.
yes, yeah. I think we have to see him like talk back to his wife. I don't say that in like a in a mean way, but he just
Hmm.
like disagrees with her openly about something, or
Hmm.
maybe it's just something as simple as dinner. Where he's like, no, and he's got goggles on, and he takes them off, and then he's like covered in dirt, and he's just like, no, no, this is what we're having for dinner. I already cooked, or something like that. Maybe he already cooked,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, okay, and they sit down and have like kind of a silent dinner with like over this roast beef or whatever it is that he wrote or made. He's a writer, so I don't know. He's writing a
He
meal on
wrote he
whatever.
wrote it into and now it got and this is the prequel to Inkheart where he
Yeah,
can
yeah,
speak things
yeah,
into existence and the prequel to The Barbarian, all of
yeah.
it. I like that scene a lot. I picture like her coming home. This is maybe a like they had established that the family knows he's digging the hole at this point. Uh and uh and then the mother comes home like she's like, sorry guys, it was a late night. Uh I know that I don't have. Should we order a pizza or can I pick up? We can order Chinese, and then that's like, oh, I cooked already. And then
Yeah.
like the daughter and the mom are like, you cooked, and it's like, I think it's funny if it's really good, and
Oh
like
yeah.
they had no idea he could cook, and then they're like, why didn't you tell us you were such a good cook? He's like, you guys like, you never gave me a chance to make
Yeah.
anything.
I
Um,
like that. I like that. I think we have to kind of address a little bit of the discomfort in this idea. It does feel like a '90s idea, but there's a
mhm,
lot of talk of gender and like gender roles and whatnot.
mhm,
And I just think that this movie, my aim is to be even handed
mhm.
with it. I think men have gotten a short the short end of the stick for a long time. And there's a lot of men that are disaffected. I mean, you just look at like the rise of someone like Jordan Peterson or even Theo Vaughn to some degree. Like
Mhm.
they kind of pal around in the same circles, that there is this cultural rise of like men need to be taken care of. Men aren't doing so good.
Mhm.
You know, there's, I mean, most mental illness is in men. Most people in prison are men. You know, there's all sorts of statistics like that where it's like men are kind of disaffected from society and culture.
Mhm.
And so this is a guy, again, I kind of said at the top, like it's a little like Fight Club, where he's like reconnecting with his identity.
Mhm.
And I think the maybe hackier version of the idea could be that other men in the neighborhood start digging in their houses too. Um,
That
but it
feels
could be
very
funny,
Fight
you
Club.
know.
That feels very like where people catch wind. They're like, I want to do that.
But yeah, it's like it, you know, it's kind of this inexplicable thing that could then take off. You know, a local female news reporter comes and like does a story about him and this kind of stuff. It's like, how deep is the hole going? He's like, I don't know. You know, he just like has no answers or whatever. But local man digs hole.
No, I like the story a lot. I do think it's funny. That I feel like you could explore that in like the somewhere in the second half of the second act of just people are getting inspired.
Yeah,
I get that Forrest Gump vibe. Like everyone's running with Forrest, and they don't know why, but they're just doing it. And it's just all these other men who feel in the neighborhood who catch wind. They're like, honey, where's the shovel? And they like just start digging a hole in their
exactly.
basement. And they're like, what's happening? And they're like, this entire neighborhood is digging holes in their basement.
I love that. I think that again, it could be done kind of hacky, you know, where
Yeah.
it's like, why are they doing it? You'd have to really tap into not trying to oversell the idea of what it is or like over telegraph like
Yeah.
what the meaning of the whole is. But I think the big third act turn is a fight with his family and a cave in.
Oh.
I think that's like the, you know, and the family comes and saves him or something along those lines. Like,
Oh,
you know, he's stuck in there and maybe the water main broke or whatever and it starts filling up and yeah.
okay. I feel like that's very interesting. So it's like, this is like deep enough. This is like holes level holes. You know, when they like
Oh yeah.
call, like, this is a deep, like with some tunnels, like he can be in there and he
I think
maybe
there
has
are
some,
tunnels for sure.
he has some lights up and then there's a cave in that blocks his way.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of ways to explore because it could just be him. It could be him with his family because that gives them an opportunity to
For him
like,
to like to save them.
yeah, for him to save them and for them to, that seems like the scene where there's this heart to heart would happen
Yeah.
of some support. She's like, this wouldn't have been happening if you hadn't been digging your hole. And I don't know, like, I don't know what the conclusion of this is, like, where he's, but like, where the come to Jesus moment where it's like, whatever needs to be said is said.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, guys, I love you guys. And I want to, I need some room to be me, and I need some room to lead you when I can, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then there's some sort of like weird combination between him and Deke to get them out. Like
Yeah.
Deke comes over and he's like, "Oh no!" And he's like trying to like help from the other side or something.
I like
Um,
that.
I don't know what that conversation looks like, but I feel it could just be him. But I'm curious what the revelation, how he gets changed when it's just him in the hole.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of dig deep into Tom right now. No
Dig
pun
deep.
intended. I know that's the name of the movie. Dig deep.
Oh, nice.
That he, what like because there's like a whole metaphor level of like, is he learning how to feel again? You know, like what is it? Maybe he hit something, and that's kind of the he's trying to reconnect with himself, obviously, in some level. But what is his want and what is his need? He needs to lead his family. He needs to return to his role as the head of the house, and that's like the spiritual need. So he needs to
Hmm.
like have the wound and the kind of unresolved conflict is that his wife and his daughter don't take him seriously.
Hmm.
So I do think that there's the subplot of the daughter having one of her pay pigs like come to the house as like a stalker,
Hmm.
and he defends them
Yeah.
from that. I think that's a pretty easy thing. Maybe the guy like beats up or hospitalizes Deke or something. You know, you got to throw some real meat on that. Make it a threat that he thinks he's some other competitor or something like that. Because I think the defense thing, the protection, is very key to what men do for their families, protecting them from not only physical dangers like that, but spiritual dangers like being a cam girl and
Yeah.
basically, you know, being a hollow shell, being hollowed out and actually pursuing something. So at the end, maybe the daughter, after the climax of the movie, you know, she like goes back to school or whatever, like, you know, just does something, let's say, more productive. I know that might make some people mad to hear that, but you know, she's not making, you know, 600 grand a year, and she like stops selling her soul basically and starts contributing to her family if she's going to live there anyway. And then same with the wife, like, or maybe it ends with them on a vacation. I don't know. Just like, again, the family being united in some capacity. So I'm working my way backwards.
Yeah, I feel like I could picture some reason that the daughter buys into this whole thing faster than the mother does. And you introduced like maybe she has a thing for Deke, and
Yeah.
then like Deke's getting his limit. He's getting ready to go down to the hole, and she's like, "Hey, yeah," like trying to like kind of flirt with him. Which the more I think about it, the more I think if he's just kind of oblivious to the fact that
Yeah.
she's like, especially with her like video streaming situation, that's what she does, and she can't gain this one guy's
Oh yeah.
attention. She's like, "Hey, do you want to hang out or something?" And he's got his limit. He's like, "Well, actually, like, I was heading down to the hole, but do you want to come down to the hole?" And she's
Yeah.
like, "Come down to the hole?" He's like, "Yeah, like, yeah, you could help." And then she's like, and she's already kind of had that interest a little bit when she first discovers it, and she's like, and maybe she's like in a very
Yeah.
cutesy dress. It's like, "Hey, you're gonna need some working clothes."
Yeah.
And then she comes down in like in jeans and like a baggy shirt, and then she kind of hops in the hole, and then Tom is just like, "Oh, hey," like it's kind of like an interesting moment for
Yeah.
him where, but I think she comes for Deke, but she stays because one, a little bit of quality time with her dad in a way that she doesn't get
Totally.
normally,
Yeah.
and two, like I
She's
think
actually
she,
curious about her dad
yeah,
now. So it's weird for both of them.
yeah, and I think she also likes some of the manual labor, like when he's like, "Oh, can you help? Like, can you grab that tool for me?" And it's like, "We're gonna try to dig this section out," and it's like working with her hands. She's like, "Oh man, yeah, this is like," she finds some satisfaction in that.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if she like became like she went into construction or something after at the end of the thing or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like
Or
that.
that's their family business or something.
Yeah. Oh, that would be funny if like the entire family like just pivoted. We're kind of getting to the end, but like pivoted and they're like a construction company or something, and they like just
I
dig or
think that,
something.
yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. Like, and with Deke, I like Deke as a supporting character because he can do so much of the thematic lifting. I think that the daughter and Deke, that sounds like a good combo, but he is like not interested in her at all on
Hmm.
like on a principle level where he's just like, oh yeah, because you know he literally might say like, because you sell your body for cash. You know, I want a woman who's committed to me and not 500,000 other men, you know, or
Hmm.
whatever. And that like obviously really challenges her and offends her or whatever. But she then is like, well, I'm going to try and impress this guy. And so she starts being less and less online
Yeah,
and more in real life.
I think whether we want to make him, I think he's more comedic if he's oblivious.
Yeah.
He can be a little of both too. He can just be like, eventually, she's just like, "Do you want to go on a date?" He's like, "Oh no,"
Yeah, exactly.
and she's like, "Well, no," and he's like, "No, I'm not really into like the online streamer like
Yeah.
say like what you said," but he's like does it in a very like friendly, funny way. But he
Yeah.
just like says his piece. He's like, "Yeah," and then he does get interest when he sees her like like working, like he's kind of like he's a little bit of a country bumpkin, and then when he
Yes.
sees
Yeah.
like the girl that like getting her hands dirty in the hole, he's like, "Wow, she's cool." It's
Yeah.
like maybe there's even a scene he's like, when it's just Deke and the dad digging because the daughter has to be somewhere else. It's like, man, Mr. Flint, your daughter's like pretty cool. Did you
Yeah.
know that? And he's like, yeah, yeah, she's cool. It's but like she's like really cool, man. Just like it's like, yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, they
I
have
I
the whole dad boyfriend
I,
scene.
I like Deke a lot. He's one of my favorite characters quickly because I think he's a really good guy, but he's just this
Yeah.
kind of comic.
I think as well, thinking of Theo Vaughn, that voice,
Mhm.
like he has such a recognizable voice, and I mean like the way that he says things, that is kind of like profound hillbilly
Mhm.
would be the way that I would describe Deke, and so that's very much in that line, and it has this kind of old world wisdom to it, whereas he is coming from a probably a background where his family life isn't that great and whatnot, but he has these like old world values that Tom doesn't have or has kind of let die on the vine, and he needs to revive it. But yeah, I think Tom wants to reconnect with his family, and well, he wants to dig a hole to find like to feel connected to his masculinity,
Mhm.
but he can't do that without his family.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of the need at the end is like the whole collapses and his family comes together to save him. So
Mhm.
like his effort to define himself outside of his family collapses,
Mhm.
and they either although I want him to have some sort of agency. So him choosing the whole or not, I think is kind of an interesting way at the end where it's like choose the whole or my family. It's either me or the whole, you know. Which is
Or it could be his family gets trapped and he has to save them.
yeah, but it means the destruction of his whole.
Yeah.
I think that's the what's on the scales is that he has to choose that his family is actually what decides and in some ways like upholds his masculinity versus like this other thing outside of himself or outside of anything. Even though
Mhm.
it is a masculine thing to dig a hole, it's got
Yeah.
to have a purpose. Or maybe the hole gets finished at the end, like it becomes the man cave, but it's like a straight up tunnel.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like what would cause him to lose the entire whole. You know what I'm saying? Like I like the idea of him
Yeah.
having to choose between the whole and his wife, but I'm like, what does that look like to lose the whole? Like, what does that mean?
Well, I think their house could collapse. Like the wife could start.
I was thinking like the entire house is shaking,
Yeah.
but then it really kind of paints Tom in a bad light because he destroyed their entire house with his
Well,
whole.
and that's actually I think thematically is accurate because ultimately the dad who abdicates, who steps away from leading and protecting, is actually leading his house to be hollowed out. And so the reality is like it took this long to see the collapse. And now that the house has collapsed, they can come together and rebuild. And so maybe they rebuild their house and it's, that's what it just starts with them at the end.
I actually okay. I think that leans well if they do become kind of a construction family, and I think you can lean into that more with along the way his tunnels get so big that he has to like develop carpentry skills to like build braces within the tunnel and stuff like
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
And like he keeps adding more handiwork to things. Like he has to fix plumbing when he's down there because he breaks line. Like all the stuff he didn't know how to do, but he has to like learn how to do while he's down in the hole.
Yes.
And then eventually you get scenes of him continually running to Home Depot, and at first like he doesn't know anything, and then like as the movie progresses, he's just like actually the guy's like, I think you need this. He's like, actually no, I need this specific. Like he knows
I love
more
that.
than
And it catches the attention of the Home Depot guy. Yeah. And he starts to know more about like, no. Those don't work.
yeah,
You know,
those don't work. Those won't hold up a hole.
yeah. And they're like, hold up a hole. And it's like they need to be graded to hold up 6,000 pounds of whatever. And I do like that idea because that's what got me to the illegal immigrant guy.
Yeah.
And like the idea that this guy, the main character, Tom, can't communicate
Hmm.
and is having a hard time communicating who he is and whatnot, but that he like really identifies with this like it kind of masculinity transcends cultures basically
Hmm.
where these guys are like, oh, you're digging a hole, it's like the Hispanic guy just like realizes what he's doing and he's like, oh yeah. But he doesn't say it in English,
Yeah.
but he just gets down there and then like a whole group of them show up and they're all like helping him build a mine shaft basically.
I I think that's cool. And you could do the people are digging holes in their own basement, or that's like a little part of it. But it could just be funny if in kind of Fight Club mentality, like people just keep coming. Like people come to see the hole,
Yeah,
and then they're like, "Give me a shovel, I'll help." And then you do
I
have
like
this whole
that. Yeah.
thing, and then because then it does create this funny scene of like when the house is shaking, like there's just all of these people that are like, oh, they're all like sprinting out of the house, and
And then it collapses, and yeah, I like that a lot
and
actually.
and then maybe that makes it a little less far fetched that they do their house collapses, but then he has like this whole like community of they're like, hey man, we can rebuild this, and like
Yeah,
they build like a better house, or they like move somewhere and all these people build a better house, and
I like
he
that a lot, but it does undercut the fact that it's the family is
okay
building the house together, because I think that's the husband and wife at the end. Basically, you see them like pick up some rubble, pick up a hammer, and they're just like, "We'll rebuild it,
yeah
even better than it was before." And maybe the wife is like working for a big construction company, and as a project manager or something along those lines, and she's like, "I'm going to quit and start my own business."
hmm
And so they come together, and they have their own business working at the end. And then you see Deke and the daughter, and I think also the daughter could leverage. She like stops streaming herself and starts streaming about the whole.
oh I like that, and it's
And
like
because like all the guys that are like paying her, they're like, no, can we see more of the whole? And she's like, oh yeah, baby. And it's just like they're like, no, 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 not that. No, we mean the hole in your dad's basement. And
that's really funny that they would be more interested that they're like more interested. I thought you were gonna say like she starts just streaming of her own volition, and all these dudes like log on. They're like, "Where is she?" And they're like, "What is this?" Like, it's
this
just
is
like
what I'm paying for. And like maybe they get more money, and she like tells her dad like, these guys online want to see you. I love that a lot. I love that a lot,
I
because then it's
think
like inspiring them to like become better men, you know?
yeah, I think it'd be funny also. Yeah. So wait, do you like the it better that the guys request to see the hole, or that she just like she starts working in the hole and she just like puts a camera up and she's like, this is what we're doing now, and
I think the ideal situation would be like she's on the cam and we see over her shoulder and her dad like coming up out of
like
the
all dirty and
all
stuff
dirty
like
and
that.
everything is like, what in the world is going on behind you?
Yeah.
But she could just be like, she gets invited down by Deke and then goes mobile, and is just streaming down in the hole. And they tell her like, hey, we want to see more of the hole.
I think that's really funny. I do like the idea if like she explains, she's like, yeah, my dad's doing this crazy thing. He's like digging a hole in the basement, a giant hole. And they're like, and then there's just like, it's all text. And then there's like a pause. And then there's someone's like, ding. It's like, can we see? Can we see
Yeah.
the hole? And then people are crazy. And then like her audience blows up even more because people are just like streaming this. They're like, what is with this dude? And something that could help with them. So they're just not like, a house in debt is
Yeah.
that like she's like at some point she's like, hey, if you want to donate to this thing, like I'll get my dad some new tools or something like that, and like the house collapses and she gets a notification on her phone, and like there's like so many people, she's like,
Yeah.
dad, that thing did way better than I thought, and it like went viral, and they have like I don't know, like $500,000 that they can buy a new or build a new
Oh,
house
yeah.
with or
That's
something
great.
like that. Like that's funny, and it also doesn't seem too far fetched that that would happen.
No,
Something
yeah.
like that goes
The only
viral.
thematic thing I would want to make sure is that it's not the only fans, basically, or knockoff, whatever it is, kind of angle we're going at. We don't
Yeah,
want that to be what's funding it. We want it to be
yeah,
clear that like that no longer is happening on the channel,
yeah,
and it's just guys that are like whole oriented. What I think is funny because obviously the pun, but
yeah.
like yeah, that they are like, no, we want to learn more, and like Deke gets on there and he's like, hey y'all. Yeah, and he's like all nervous and everything, and he's just like, I think that could be.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah, figure out what that transition is and whether it's maybe it's just as simple as changing the site. She's just like a streamer, and
Yeah,
it's like you don't put the label of like OnlyFans, and it's like
that's true. She could just be a
it's just in
Twitch,
yeah, it's
you
just like
know.
people are like, oh, she's yeah, whether she's like a gamer or she still dresses a little skimpy, and that's kind of what brings in some of her audience. But then once she starts dressing country work and all of that, then like her audience like quadruples for some reason because all these, I guess, country people are streaming. They're like,
Yeah.
show us that big hole downstairs.
But yeah, I think that makes total sense, and I think there should be a scene where the wife doesn't find out until someone at work is like, "Hey, Diane, check, whatever," and it's like, "That's my house," like she's realized that her husband has been digging a hole, and so then she comes in and kind of tries to shut down the whole operation. Obviously, fights with Tom, and Tom and Diane. Isn't that song?
Jack and Diane.
Jack and Diane. Okay, yeah, that's right. Little ditty
There's a
about
little
Tom and Diane.
living in a hole in the
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah. I like that a lot, and I can imagine a lot of scenes. Just I think the wife is the underdeveloped part where we need to kind of bring in how she her finding out about it, but also coming into conflict and how that plays itself out. Like he gets into bed just totally filthy. Because she's like a Annette Bening's character from, what is it? The Kevin Spacey movie,
I don't think
American
I've seen
Beauty.
that.
Oh, you've never seen American Beauty? It's awesome. And it's very profound. I don't know if it holds up now that Kevin Spacey is, canceled and just weird. But back in the day, it's just a profound movie, and it's about this kind of similar thing where this guy who is lost, he's a lost soul, ends up getting back into touch with himself and starts working out, and I won't ruin it for you if you want to watch it, but
I'm gonna watch it at some point.
This is a very comedic version of that. Again, it's like American Beauty meets Fight Club, meets, I don't know,
Holes.
Holes, yeah, maybe Office Space.
Yeah.
Those types of kind of disgruntled men movies, as subgenre, whatever.
It's funny because this movie feels, like I said before, so 90s, and it makes me think it's like there's movies like this don't get made that much.
Oh yeah, this is a
anymore.
total mid-budget, 45, $50 million movie.
Yeah.
Those are comedies in general. Like comedies just don't get made because of that. Like
Yeah.
they just don't make the money. I think it's probably changing a little bit right now. Could be wrong, but we watched the Nicolas Cage movie Dream Scenario the other day.
Dude, that's on my list. I want to watch that.
It's actually very similar to this, just in terms of like a middle-aged guy who's got something kind of phenomenal happening in his life, and that's really it. But he gets reinvigorated with his family, or not. I won't ruin it. But it was good. It was very funny.
I saw the trailer for it. For our viewers who aren't familiar, it's an A24 movie. Nicolas Cage, like Zach said, is just kind of this random dude.
It's a professor.
And this is all in the trailer. This is not a spoiler, but he starts discovering that people have dreams about him. Just like lots of people, like he will appear in their dreams, and it kind of makes him like a mild celebrity, and it's the repercussions of that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it's that type of guy again that takes himself very seriously. That's the engine for the comedy. I don't think that's necessarily Tom anymore. Maybe in my initial conception of him, that felt like Tom, but now it's slightly different. I don't know if Tom is necessarily the funny one anymore. I think Deke kind of takes over that.
I think Tom can be funny in how he handles things. Like I can see that once he gets, like he's funny at the beginning with how he says things when he's kind of immobilized and can't really do anything.
Yeah.
And then I think he is funny in how his like contrast with how his family is, like where he's just like happy and kind of confident. Like
Yes.
I think like digging the hole, he like discovers part of himself. Like, and
Yes.
you get to see that, and his family gets to see that, but he doesn't discover his whole self until he reunites with his family.
Yes, I think it's a great way to put it. And so, yeah, that whole time, and that's where it ultimately comes down to he has to choose the whole or them. And the whole ultimately is a symbol for the rot that's in his family already. Like his house is falling apart, and it's hollowed out. And so he's just bringing that to light. And obviously it's like, no pun intended, it's buried deep enough thematically to where it's not on the nose about it, Maybe it could be, but in that way it might be funny actually. But yeah, maybe his wife hires like a counselor, and she like they go down into the hole, and like a marriage counselor, and he's like, "Can you stop digging? We're trying to have a," and they're like in like a little mine shaft thing, and the guy's like, the counselor starts digging too.
That's what I love, the idea that like no matter who the wife brings, people are just like obsessed with this hole. Like people like they're like captivated. They're like, maybe the counselor's like, hey, like the wife's talking to the counselor beforehand, and he's like, as crazy as it sounds, like I've worked with someone similar to this who dug holes in their basement and like sounds really competent. And when he comes to their house, he's like, oh my, and he's like, and he's just like, and he's like so enamored with like how big, like it's like way bigger than he thought it was gonna be. And then he's like, do you have any extra shovels? And the wife's like, what are you doing? And then he's like rolling up his sleeves, and just no matter what,
he like starts explaining. He's like, no, it's important that it's for me to understand. And then he just like goes to town with a pickaxe, and he's just like, Yahoo! Like that guy. You just see him like devolve over the movie, where like the counselor's like shirtless. He's got cut off jeans now. Or maybe it's a pastor. I think that's kind of funny too. Like, oh, what a Pastor Greg. He's just down there. And
call him Pastor Mud.
Yeah, exactly. There are men down there, like just working around the clock.
It'd be funny if like this would be like a quick scene, like if it was a pastor, like a quick scene where the wife's like getting ready for work, and then she hears like some mumbling and stuff, and she goes down into the hole, and they set up some like camp chairs, and they're like doing church down there, and he's like and he's like shirtless with his cut off jeans, like giving a sermon, and all like the Home Depot guys and stuff are like just there nodding.
We have a Spanish service as well. No, I like that they're like, the wife comes down there. There's a whole town basically, and though he's like, oh, we even have a jail, and it's like cut to a guy, and he's just like, let me out of here. He got a little too into the moonshine or something, and it's like, it's just a holding tank. We have whatever, but there's like police. I think that's awesome. Like it's a tribal thing. Like they have things like made out of wood.
It's becoming more and more ridiculous if you have people like living down there. But that is funny. I was just saying like having a sermon in the thing, but that is funny if there's a jail and like there's just. I think you could take it as far as you wanted to. Like it could, it just leans more into the comedy, the more ridiculous. It's like, oh yeah, no, we've got beds down here. It's great. But I
love that. Yeah.
Well, we're running low on time, but dude, this was a lot of fun. I like this movie a lot.
I like it a lot too, yeah.
And I'd love to see this. I was just in my head. We're always coming up with alternate funny endings where it's like the house is rocking, and he's like looking at the hole, and he looks at his family, and his family's beckoning him. They're like, "You got to get out of there! It's going down." He's like, "I choose the hole," and he dives into the hole, and then the house collapses, and he's buried underground.
That's hilarious. But, I think, like there are so many. It's got legs, which I think is something that we probably say pretty often, and that's why I can sit here and think about this idea of. And like turn it into like crazy town again, where there's straight up. It sounds like a Malcolm in the Middle episode where Hal digs under the house, and there's a whole town now, and he's employed the boys to help him and stuff. But it could also be a feature film with Brendan Fraser and Theo Von. Yeah. So yeah, dude, I like Dig Deep.
Dig Deep, starring maybe Brendan Fraser. Brendan, if you hear this and you ever want to be part of this, let us know, and we'll get writing.
Theo Von, this one's for you though.
You're with Theo Von.
I'm hitching my ride on that pony right there.
Oh, well, Zach, do you have any? As we're closing off, we've got Dig Deep, and let's hit our along the line segment. Do you have something along the lines? Something that someone would say in this movie?
Yeah, so I have plenty of lines. So the one that comes to mind now, I said one earlier, but this one, I think this is from the wife. This is from Diane to Tom, and she says, "Depression takes many forms, but I don't think this is one of them."
I like that. Thank you all for listening to StoryFellas, a part of the Pemmican Studios podcast network. Check out our show notes for bonus material, links, and more. To find out more about our current projects, send us messages, and suggest ideas for the show, go to StoryFellasPodcast.com. If you liked what you heard, share the show with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community. Until next time, go make and break those stories.